Thank you for joining us. I am delighted today to welcome Elle Lagis, Chief People and Culture Officer for Flexera, and Karin Arnold, Head of Talent Acquisition for Automatic, to Work Without Limits. I am particularly excited for this conversation because we have all experienced a tectonic shift within the workforce in the last 18 months. As teams went distributed, many people found a silver lining in the fact that remote work works. Now, the workforce is undergoing yet more change and businesses are desperate to add new skills and expand teams. But leaders are struggling with talent shortages and high resignation rates. The recovering economy is straining resources further as businesses scramble to meet the pace of growth and respond to changing customer demand. Innovative companies such as Flexera and Automatic, have realized the value of tapping into blended teams of full-time employees and freelance talent. Today, we will learn from Karin and Elle about how they are adding hard-to-find talent, heading off skills gaps, and positioning themselves for growth by embracing blended teams to fuel growth and drive business outcomes. Let's dig in. Elle, Karin, welcome to Work Without Limits. I'd like to start by asking you to introduce yourself quickly and share a bit about your company and the makeup of your workforce, and if that's changed because of the last year. Elle, let's start with you.
Hi, thanks for having me. Flexera, we are a technology company headquartered out of suburbs of Chicago. Flexera delivers IT management solutions that enable enterprises to accelerate the return on their technology investments. We are 1,300 employees worldwide, and we have over 50,000 customers.
Wow. Fantastic. Karin, what about you?
Sure, yeah, thanks for having me as well. Automatic is the company behind WordPress.com, Tumblr, WooCommerce, Jetpack, and a bunch of other really great brands. We have about 1,500 employees spread out over 86 countries. And the main changes, I think, for us, we've been distributed since the beginning of our company. So the last year and a half hasn't really changed a whole lot about how we approach work, but we have made some modifications as we've gone along.
Elle, maybe can you talk to us a little bit about how Flexera has incorporated freelance talent within your teams to close those gaps and drive business outcomes?
Sure. So we are, as I mentioned, 1,300 employees worldwide, and historically, about 30% of our team are what we call cloudy, so remote workers. But as you mentioned at the onset, right, we're in the midst of what's being deemed the Great Resignation. And with that, we've had higher attrition than normal. And so what we've done is we've leveraged freelance talent to help us continue to maintain a pace, in accelerating work and help us bridge some gaps as we are looking for full-time employees and or using freelancers to help really with some of the project-based work as we plan for, not only this year, but next.
That's fantastic. And do you find that your teams are working effectively with the freelance talent? Do you have any special tricks that people can emulate to really make sure that they're included?
Yeah, I mean, I think we treat, as we onboard or we bring in a freelancer, we treat them as part of the team. And so there's an onboarding period as if they were a full-time employee. And really what we found is that the teams naturally sort of embrace and engage with this person. Again, the goal and the end game is the same. It's to get, the end results, project delivery, whatever it may be. So fortunately, we've had success with being able to do that.
That's excellent. Thank you. Karin, can you tell me a story or about a moment that really unlocked you to the power of freelancer talent in your workforce?
We have, over the last, probably even before the pandemic, so pre-pandemic, we started on our customer support side of things. We started to lean in a little more deeply into offering localized support. And one of the ways that we did that was to work with Upwork to grow teams, small teams of freelancers that had the languages that we felt our customers would really benefit from interacting with. And it was, I think when we started the project, we thought, this will just be kind of a nice to have. And as we grew into it, it just really added such value to our customer base and filled a real big need that we had on our customer support team for a long time. And I think everybody who engaged with the program just really saw how beneficial it was.
That's excellent. Elle, was there a moment for you that sort of unlocked your mindset around how to increase freelancer talent in your workforce and the power that brought?
I mean, so the good news for us was we really started down this journey and partnering with Upwork a few years ago. So pre-COVID, we started down the path. And I think for us, it was the realization that you don't necessarily need full-time employees to be able to accomplish what your business needs are. And then furthermore, it was recognizing the opportunity to leverage freelancers, again, and whether that's project work when you don't have budget for full-time employees, but you need to get deliverables done. So we've been on this journey for a few years now, and I think COVID just, really highlighted for the world, right, that you can have workers from anywhere aiding your business.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think you've been models in how to do that successfully. So let me ask you a little bit more about that. Elle, how have you managed to continue the inclusive culture that I know is so important to Flexera, that continues to empower and support hybrid and blended teams? What have you done? What can we learn from what you've learned?
I think the great thing is when you start with a foundation of a really strong culture, which we do have at Flexera, and we're very anchored on our core values. I think whether you are a remote full-time worker, again, we call them cloudies, or whether you're a freelancer that's working with us, on a temporary basis or even on an extended contractual basis, it's really that integration and recognizing that person as part of the org, regardless of whether they're physically in a location, whether they're a permanent full-time employee, and it's really just how we operate. And I think a lot of that is also on the managers and the hiring managers, as well as my team, in ensuring that onboarding process is equal regardless. And so we've been pretty fortunate. We do a lot of engagement and interaction via Microsoft Teams, and we really try to make sure that we have all of our team members connected.
That's great. Karin, maybe I can ask you to share a little bit about how Automatic really drives the same collaboration and effective brainstorming and innovation in a hybrid working environment where you've got these blended teams who need to work together closely. What have you learned? What are some secrets to the success that you've had at Automatic?
Yeah, it's not really a secret. We talk about it a lot, but yeah, I think some of the things that we make sure happen all of the time is one that we're very aware, since we've been working globally for so long, we're very aware that we need to really welcome asynchronous communication. So when we're planning out projects, when we're having conversations, we're always aware that there might be somebody who's involved in the conversation who's asleep at the moment because they're on the other side of the world from us. And so we have to give them the time and the space to be able to engage in the conversation. But even before we get to that point, everything that we do at Automatic is documented transparently. So anybody at any level of the company can look at, we use a tool called P2 to keep all of our conversations going. Every single conversation that needs to be open is written down essentially. So across the board, if I'm diving into a project, I can do extensive, back reading and catching up and research on everything that's happened leading up to that or any other related projects. So that's just it's baked into our DNA that everything we do is written down, and everything we do gives time and space for the people who aren't working at that moment to get involved. And we hop on Zoom calls, we do a lot of phone calls and things like that, but the basis is in getting things on P2, getting things in Slack, making sure it's recorded and documented in our internal field guides and those sorts of resources, so that everybody can feel included. Nobody has to feel like they're not involved in the conversation, regardless of whether they're a full-time employee or an international contractor or a freelancer.
That's fascinating. And I can imagine that initially takes some patience, but probably, saves a lot of time in the long run because there isn't misunderstanding and everybody's working on the same thing. So that's a great insight. Thank you. Elle, let's change it a little bit. Your team recently made the shift away from talent acquisition towards talent access. Can you talk to us a little bit about what prompted that shift and the results you've seen?
Absolutely. So when we think about talent, right, for us, it's about being able to access talent anywhere, again, whether that's full-time, whether that's contracted, freelance. And so for us, it was a real mind shift in how we were really traditional historically in how we thought about hiring. And it was really full-time employees. And so talent access for us meant, how can I leverage talent anywhere, again, in different forms to help us drive the business and continue to move forward. And we were inspired by that notion based on a lot of the success we had with Upwork and leveraging some of the freelancers early on in our journey of experimenting with that.
That's fantastic. And has that been well received?
It has. I mean, I think it took time. Again, we were really sort of grounded in a traditional hiring, thinking back 2 to 3 years ago. So it absolutely has evolved, and it's really well embraced. And as we all know, with the hiring market the way that it is, and attrition levels at the rate that they are, it's been a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to continue to have momentum and move forward.
That's great. Thank you, Elle. Let me just follow up on that. Do you have any tips for how HR leaders can successfully implement this? Are there things they need to know? Is there something specific in their organization that would be helpful for them to be the champion of moving to talent access and flexible teams?
I think it's really looking at your hiring needs differently, right? As opposed to, I need this role. It's really understanding what are the competencies, skills, or tasks associated with that role. Are there ways to creatively maybe carve some of that out? And perhaps what you thought you needed in a full-time employee, you could actually accomplish with a contractor and a freelancer, and perhaps use that full-time employee, somewhere else. So I think it's just keeping an open mind, thinking about the roles that are open, and again, thinking about it as truly access, right? You have access to so much talent in different forms, and really just thinking through it differently. I think that honestly, it's just a mind shift change.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. That's really helpful. Elle, you and Flexera have built this amazing program over the last few years, and you've clearly been using freelance talent with your teams to close gaps and drive business outcomes. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, and then what's next for Flexera? What are you thinking about?
Absolutely. So when we really started down the path of working with Upwork and even just thinking about freelancers, it was a significant mind shift for us. We were really based and anchored in on more traditional team members and full-time employees. And so what it's done is it's really given us an opportunity to work on projects that perhaps we didn't have skill sets or the right internal talent for, that were critical to move our business forward. And it's also really helped us bridge gaps as we were looking to hire talent and ensuring that we were still able to maintain, whatever work or projects we needed to have done. In terms of future state, right, I think we've learned a lot with COVID. And one of the things, business is continuing to still move fast and furiously for us, thankfully. And with that, we're looking at leveraging freelancers at a more grand scale. So as opposed to thinking about, 1 or 2 people, looking at more agency type talent, leveraging larger teams of individuals to help us continue to accelerate how we go to market. And I think that's a really big differentiator on how we're thinking about future state.
Thanks, Elle. That's really interesting. Karin, what about you? What about Automatic? Tell us a little bit about the journey you've been on and how you're thinking about the future.
Oh yeah, when the pandemic really started settling in and all of these changes happened to our workforce, we realized that we had some incredible growth that we needed to address. And so we were relying on freelancers to help us as we were doing this major hiring push. We were relying on freelancers to sort of fill in a lot of the gaps for us, projects that we didn't have enough people to get started on right away. Really just pulling in freelancers to help us move this work forward while we continue to grow our workforce. And I think that's really where we're going with the future as well. The work that we've done with Upwork has been so valuable in so many projects where we can just hop in and grab someone to get something done, whether it be recruiters or design work or a wide variety of things. I see us just continuing kind of with that into the future.
Well, thank you both so much for your time and insights. I deeply appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.